Okay, guys, I want to welcome you to today's session. It is Sage Intelligence, and we're going to be working with Microsoft Excel, preferably with the 2016 version and above. But if you have 2013, it's still going to work fine. It is Sage Intelligence. Discover how to use pivot tables to create insightful dashboards from a large amount of data. And of course, this is for accountants, it's for bookkeepers, it's for sales managers, purchase managers. Essentially, if you're working with large data sets, large amounts of information coming in that you won't be able to make sense of when you're just using a normal calculator, essentially, or just papers, then this is essentially for you. It is Pivot Tables 101, and of course, this is a series that we're going to be running across through the entire summer. So let's just get started. Sage Intelligence, discover how to use pivot tables to create insightful dashboards. Let's just go ahead and get started. Of course, this webcast is being recorded and it will be provided to you via email. All participants are indeed muted. Any questions, just type them into the WebEx Q&A control panel or email them to me at david.acco-brian@sage.com. And guys, it looks like some of you might be using a different phone to call in, not your computer. If not, you might not be muted. So if you do come in and if we do get some noise, if you can simply mute your phone or just turn off the microphone there, it'll be fine. And everything should be great. So I'm just getting started. It's going to be really brief. It's just 30 minutes, of course, and we're going to build on this for the next it's a bunch of episodes coming up. So today's agenda, these are features covered in this webcast. Of course, we're going to be working with pivot tables. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just pretty much show you guys a large amount of data that I've uploaded there. I also put that in the WebEx Q&A control panel. It's something you can go ahead and download directly from Google Drive. Download the file and you'll see the raw data sheet with lots of information, lots of columns, lots of rows, a lot of numbers and figures in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and make sense of that information. So by doing that, of course, we're going to create a pivot table. And from there, you can see just how useful pivot tables can be when you're working with your information. In there, we're going to work with slicers, and slicers essentially what they do is they're floating filters, those filters that can filter information on your pivot table. And once they filter it, you'll notice how the pivot table pivots, essentially. That's just the term. The pivot table pivots, and once it does that, you'll be able to go ahead and see the information based off of the filters you've quickly applied. You'll see just how efficient that is. Of course, we're going to work with some dynamic charts and some graphs, all of which pivot and change the information accordingly. So if you were to go in and flip to a specific, let's say, customer or a specific date, or let's say a specific financial period that you're reporting on, you'll see all the information, all the numbers, they actually go ahead and dynamically change when you pick that information. And of course, named ranges, essentially what they are, those are just the different tables that are used to construct your data. So let's just go ahead and get started. I'm just going to minimize this really quickly for you guys. There we go. So what we have here, see if I can maximize that. Hope you guys can see it. If not, please let me know. What we have here essentially is a lot of data. Let me see. Someone said test, please. Okay, a bunch of people can hear. It looks good. So what's going on here is what we have here is a lot of information. So I'm just going to move here. I'm just going to take you to sheet one. What we have here under sheet one is information that doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense per se. So I'm just going to explain what it is here. What we're looking at here is sales data for the month of January. For the month of January to March. Now, for those of you that don't have sound, please go ahead and check your speakers. See if you can call in or use your computer speakers. That's where the sound is supposed to be coming from. But I believe everyone else should be able to hear me. I just already got confirmation from a bunch of other people, so we should be fine. There we go. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. And it's good to go. So, again, back to what I was saying here. What I was saying, this is sales data. It could come from any type of software. It could come from QuickBooks. It could come from Sage 50. It could come from Sage 100. Any program. It could be anything. This is a lot of data. So what I'm looking at here are a bunch of columns. I have the amount paid. This is the company name. I've got cost code, customer account number, the customer balances, and it goes all the way to the right-hand side with the customer contact names, the sales reps. If I scroll all the way here, you guys can see it. It's a lot of information. Let me see if I can move it a bit here so you guys can see just how much information is in there. And it doesn't look like we can make sense of it. Now, of course, how did the information get here? Again, I'll explain briefly. If, for example, you're working at a factory, you're working at a nice little company or maybe a warehouse, or let's say a sales depot, and people come in and they make purchases. They go in, they make purchases. You've got a bunch of sales reps, and those sales reps, once they make the sale, of course, they create the invoice, they print it out. After printing out that invoice, they go ahead and hand it to the customer. Customer's gone. Now they go ahead and they enter this information in an Excel file. They might go ahead and put that information in there, what type of item was purchased, what the invoice number was, if it was completed, if there was gross profit associated with specific invoices, the description of the items, and so on and so forth. So once that information is all being entered, once it's been placed in there, what happens is someone needs to make sense of this data to make better business decisions. You might want to know which sales reps are actually selling the most, which customers are purchasing the most, and which items are pretty much which items are useless. Well, let me not say useless. Which items aren't actually making the most in sales. So if you need to get rid of them, or if you need to limit the amount of items you keep in stock, all of these things can be done when using Excel. It's just part of data science. All of these things can be done when using Excel, using pivot tables in particular to know who's buying the most and to know what's not selling. This way you can know if you need to increase your overhead or not, and so on and so forth. You can also use it to track your gross profit and your gross profit percentage. I mean, that's pretty much up to you how you want to do it. But the goal of this is to show you how you can use pivot tables to take all of this information here, all of this useless information, what we like to call it is noise. It's a lot of noise, to take all this noise and make sense of it, turning that into a nice little pivot table. Again, this is not even a complete one, but I will create a complete pivot table with you guys. And once that's been created, you'll see how we'll put in the charts, we'll put in the graphs, we'll put in the timeline and some slicers there so you guys can see exactly what happens when we flip that data around. So again, like I mentioned, this is just noise. It's a lot of information here. No one can be expected to come in here and use all this data, use all this information just by going from top to bottom. And another thing I just wanted to show you really quickly, let me see if I can take you to the invoice number. Because this is a lot of information, some invoices may have lots of line items on them. So I'm just going to take you to the invoice number section so you can see them. They have lots of line items in there, and if they do have those line items, look at this. I've got an invoice number that's repeating. This is called redundancy. This is something that most sales managers here and bookkeepers do not like. It takes up a lot of time and space, and of course lots of paperwork. So what if we could actually grab that one invoice number, for example, the 10129, and once you're in the, you grab that invoice, you go ahead and you take all the line items on it and put it on just one section. That's saving you a lot of space and, of course, a lot of time. And of course, it actually shows you which sales rep sold it, how much the gross profit was, and which customers actually made the purchase. Again, we'll do all of that. So I'm going to take you back all the way to the right, and what we're looking at here, of course, is raw data. This is the sales analysis sheet. I just wanted to show you what happens if you actually get really pedantic with a pivot table. And we're going to create our own right now. So first things first, this raw data that we're looking at, like I said, doesn't make sense. But what if we want to go ahead and we want to create a nice little pivot table that sums up all this information? It's really simple. All I do is I just place my mouse here. And again, guys, if you're on 2013 and above, you should be good to go. The 2010 version also has pivot tables, but the slicers and the timelines that I'm going to show you are not available on that version. So it was from the 2013 version. The Pro and above, you should be fine. If you're using the Home, also, you should be good with it. So to create your pivot table, here we go. If you did download that file that I sent, that's okay. If you downloaded the file, that's that should work fine. But if you didn't download it, let me see. Some people still cannot hear me. I'm just gonna type this in really quickly, guys. Just give me 1 second. I'm just gonna type in use your speakers on the computer. There we go. Okay. And really quickly, if I just need a test from just one person, if anyone can hear me, I just need one person to confirm. Again, if someone can indeed hear me, just go ahead and type that in so I can make sure it's not everyone that's been out. But apart from that, everyone should be good because I haven't had. Okay, there we go. Thank you very much, Carly. And Greg, thanks guys. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Again, don't want to take up much of your time. If I want to go, what we're gonna do is this. I'm just gonna create a nice little pivot table. We're gonna click anywhere on this data sheet, and this is where the intelligence, the artificial intelligence of Excel pops in. I want to create a pivot table. Click anywhere on this table, guys. I didn't say click on you. Not saying you need to click on a column that or maybe you can't click in any empty cell. As long as it's a table, Excel will know. It already detect that this is indeed a table. So all we do is just click on it anywhere and click insert from the main menu. You can choose recommended pivot tables, and I'll show you what that does really quickly. Once you go ahead and you click on recommended pivot tables, what happens is it shows you the different recommendations because it already knows that this, it looks like it's sales. I already put in customer there, but if it was, let's say, financial data, it would have detected that also. These are the different recommended pivot tables that I can work with. Just by clicking on each one, it'll actually show you some recommendations, but you're not stuck on that. So I'm going to hit cancel. What we're going to do is we're going to create our own pivot table, not a recommended one. Again, click anywhere, and I'm going to hit insert. When I click on insert, I'm going to choose pivot table. Once I do this, guys, I hope you can see what's going on here. Look at cell A1, just at the top. You mean the entire border, if you look at it, there's a little, looks like there's some, it's copying. It's already detected that we have a table and there's information in that table. And also in Excel, again, 2013 and above, once you do this, it already knows that this table has a name. I did have, it's part of the named range as I mentioned, and it's called raw data. If you look up top here, I'm just going to hit the drop down list so you guys can see it. That's the raw data. That's it. It knows that there is some raw data. It's a table that I did create. So once I do this, as soon as I go ahead and I drop that in there, it's asking me now, these are the options where it says to create a pivot table, select a table arrange. So it's already found that data all the way from the very top cell to the end. So if I want, I could actually pull information from an external data source. So we're not going to do that right now. That's if you have data coming from a completely different program, different source, maybe on a different computer. What we're going to do is we're going to work on the information that we have here. So choose where you want to place the pivot table. So you can choose a new worksheet or an existing one. We always recommend putting that on a new worksheet. If you put it on an existing one, what's going to happen is it's going to grab a pivot table. It's going to throw it on the same sheet, and it's going to pretty much overlap some of your information. This is good only if you have very, very small data sets, not millions and millions of rows of data. So what I'm going to choose is to put this on a new worksheet. And once I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and I can click OK. It's asking if you want to analyze multiple tables. And that pretty much means if you have data coming from multiple tables, you can definitely do that. For example, if your warehouse consists of multiple locations, you might have one in Chicago, one in Los Angeles, one in Atlanta, Georgia, you can definitely do that. This way you can compare data now from multiple tables and flip from one to the other. So we're just going to leave it at that. I'm just going to choose to drop that on a new worksheet, and I'm going to click OK. Once I do that, notice how there is a brand new worksheet called Sheet 3 showing up. That's it right there, Sheet 3. So now, guys, if you did download that file, now's the time. If you want, you can just feel free to rename it. Just right click on that sheet. You can just go ahead and say rename. And I'm going to call this sales data. That's it. Good to go. It's sales data. It's okay. So that has been renamed. It's the sales data. So I'm just going to click out of it. You guys just pause and appreciate your work. What happens is there is a nice little canvas here, and this is our pivot table. The canvas, if I want to start working on it, all I need to do is click anywhere on that canvas, and it will bring up what you call the field list. The field list enables me to view every single column and row that was actually created, that actually came with the sheet 1 raw data. And from there, creating a pivot table is easy as dragging and dropping or just putting little mouse clicks, and I'll show you how that works. If I click out here, notice how nothing's happening because I'm not on the canvas. So I'm going to take you back here to the pivot table canvas. I'll click on it once and look to the right hand side, the field list pops up. Pivot table fields. That's it. Now's the time. This is what I like to call the skeleton or the anatomy of a pivot table. So what I'm going to do here is I can determine which specific fields go where. If, for example, I want to start working with, let's say, some sales reps, I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to look, see if I have some sales reps. If it's too long, guys, don't worry. You can always come up top here. You can just type in sales rep like that, and it's going to filter it. So that's the sales rep. Getting that information on my pivot table here is as easy as either dragging it and dropping it or just putting a mouse, just clicking in there. So I'm going to grab my sales rep like this. I'm going to put that as one of the filters down here. Notice what I just did, sales rep. Notice how if you look up top here, I actually have my pivot table right there. That's my sales rep that I'm looking at. So what else do I want to work with? Let's say I want to work with some inventory items. I'm just going to go ahead and just drag that here. I'm just going to type in inventory. I could actually item ID, that's what it's called in this case. So I'm just going to type in item for an item ID. These are my inventory items. Again, you can either drag and drop or you can put a check mark in it. So I'm just going to put a check mark this time to show you the differences. Notice how when I put the check mark in there, it dropped that in my rows section. These are the rows, but I don't want that under the rows. I want that as some of the filters. So I'm just going to hold it like this, and I'm going to bring it back up top here in the filters, and that's it. So now I have two filters, sales rep and item ID. Again, it's as easy as that, dragging and dropping. So let's go ahead and get some more information in there. Let's see, I'm going to see if I can get some customer names in there. Let's see, I'm going to get customer. Okay, there is a customer ID section here. Let's just look for that customer ID. That's it. That's my customer ID. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to put the customer ID down at the bottom as one of the rows. Notice how as soon as I'm doing this, I'm going to flip really quickly to sheet one. Every single customer. Let's see if I can get the customer so you guys can see it. Just going to do a search really quickly. Yeah, go Control F. I'm just going to type in customer. There we go. Customer ID. Let's just go ahead and find it. There it is. So that's my customer ID. Now, remember I mentioned redundancy. Because I have lots and lots of invoices, those customers are going to repeat. So I've got Aldrich showing up here multiple times in Archer, all of these. But when you're working with a pivot table, the pivot table recognizes that you have just, of course, one customer with lots and lots of purchases. So I'm going to take you back to my sales data that I created here. Just move that so you guys can see it. And now Aldrich shows up just once. If I start putting in, let's say, a bunch of numbers, it's going to show me the total that Aldrich actually had for over a specific time. So I got my customer ID there. Let's see if we can get some more stuff in there. So I'm going to start looking for, let's see if I can get some dates. I'm just going to scroll down here. Let's X that out. Okay, so I've got the customer ID. In fact, let's just work with the sales analysis. There we go. So I'm just going to get the total sales. I'm not going to make it that big. Just want to show you guys how that works. So back to the sales data. Here's what I want to do. Let's get with some, we're going to work with some line item data. So let's work with line item. So here's our line sales amount. The line sales amount, guys, what it is just a specific line on every invoice. Remember how I mentioned Aldrin may have, a specific customer may have, let's say, 10 different lines on his invoice. He might have a line that says $20 for boxes, $10 for shoes, $5 for keys. Those are three different lines on one invoice. We don't want that repeating, or the invoice numbers will repeat. So what we want is we want to get each line item on that one invoice to total up. It's really easy. I can grab that line sales amount like this, and this time, since this is a dollar figure, I'm going to put that under the values here like this. That's it. I'm going to do it again really quickly. Since it's a dollar figure, we're not going to throw down put it under columns or filters or rows. It's pretty much it's numerical. So all numerical values go under the value section. It's as easy as that. So I'm just going to grab line sales amount and I'm going to drop it here. That's it. What it's doing now, it's totaling all the different lines on the invoices that all the different customers purchased. And yes, there is a field for invoice number which we'll throw in there. But wait, there's more. If I wanted, I could get the line description or line cost amount. The line cost amount is also very important. Now, if you're working with inventory or you're working essentially on the field, you did put items in stock. Yeah, let's say 20 boxes in stock. Each of those boxes, you might sell them at maybe $100 each, giving you, let's say, $2,000. But they weren't your boxes that you manufactured. You didn't manufacture them. You might have purchased them from somewhere else to put them in stock. That's the cost. So if each of those items, each of those boxes cost me $10 to put them in stock, of course, the cost of each box would be $10. So there we go. I'm going to grab the line item cost so you can see it. So that's the line item cost. So good question coming in here, guys. Someone is wondering here if we can definitely go ahead, if we can if we can go ahead and change the headings. We can definitely change the headings. And guys, I'm just going to go ahead and post one more time that file. Some people are asking where the file is. I'm going to see if I can just throw that in there. Okay, guys, I just put the file location one more time. It's out there. If you go look at the chat, you'll see the file location. Okay. So again, if you're not satisfied with these columns being, row labels and sum of line cost amount, you can definitely go in there and you can change that. You can change all the information. And how do we do it? Really simple. I'll show you how we can do it. Let's say we want to go and change the line cost amount and just call it cost of sales. I'm going to come back here to this anatomy here, the skeleton, where it says sum of line costs. Once I click on it, notice how I have some options. These options here, they give me, I can either move the field up, down to the end, add it to the report filter, or I can go to the value field settings. And once I do this, it's asking me what type of value I want to show. Since I'm summing up the information, I'm just going to leave it as a sum. But if I wanted, I could choose count. And if I choose count, it's going to just tell me how many different line items are on that inventory, on that invoice. So if I had an invoice with 10 items, instead of giving me the total of that invoice, it's just going to say this invoice has 10 different items on it, and that's the count. But we're going to leave it here. And let me just demo really quickly so you can see it. I'm going to click OK, and there it is right there. Now it's giving me the count. So what it's saying is Aldred has an invoice with 10 items on it. That's all it's saying. But I don't want to do that. I want to work with the sum. So I'm just going to take you guys back here, and it says sum. Change the name, which says custom name. I'm just going to change that really quickly, and I could just call this total cost amount. Let's just call that total cost amount and leave it at that. That's our total cost amount. And I click OK. Notice how it's now total cost amount. Let's do the same thing with the line sales amount. So I'm just going to call this total sales amount also. So now you know exactly what's happening with my sales. And just clicking OK there. So now I have Aldred, and I know that Aldred pretty much had a total cost amount of this. This is how much it cost me to get Aldred's items in the inventory, and this is how much I sold to Aldred over a specific time. But wait, there's more. Let's get our invoice numbers in there. Let's go invoice number. Okay, I'm just going to grab the invoice number. I'm going to throw that right under the customer ID like this. That's our invoice number coming up. Let's see, I've got the invoice number. So now under Aldred, notice how Aldred has these different invoice numbers and their totals. That's it right there. If you don't want the totals to be up top, really simple. You can just click on that pivot table like that. You go to the pivot table options, and then you can pretty much go to totals and filters and choose wherever you want those filters to show up. So let me see. I'm just going to grab the date really quickly so you guys can see the rest, how it works. And then we're going to start throwing in some add-ins. So I'm going to get the date, put it under the invoice number. There we go. So I've got the dates. They're showing up now. So I've got the invoice. I've got the dates and all that. If I don't want that, guys, remember, if you do not want that information there, you can grab it and drop it under the column section also. That's pretty much up to you. So this date is broken up to date. This says date and month. I'm just going to get rid of the month. I don't really want the month. I just want the date. That's at 15 February because it's all in 2017. So pivot table is still building. Someone asked another good question. If you don't want this information showing up under the customer, you don't want the customer name and then the invoice and the date, you can definitely change the design of your pivot table to a less compact form. You can send it to an outline, and I'll show you how that works also. So once you click on your pivot table, just go to design. I'm going to click out of it so you guys can see what we've been doing so far. Once you click out of the pivot table, everything disappears. Once you click in it, notice how the top of Excel, it brings the pivot table tools. Every item, every add-in in Excel has its own ribbon up top. It's something really important to remember, because what's going to happen is when we put in the slicers and the timelines, you'll see their own ribbons also. So now that we clicked on it, if I want to change the pivot table design, I just click on it up top, and notice how this is where I can choose where I want the subtotals to show or not show. If I want, I can put them at the top of the group or the bottom of the group like that. If I want grand totals, if I want the report layout, which is something some of you might want to change, I can show in compact form like this, which is what we're looking at now, or the outline form. This is the question. I'm just answering the question that was just asked. So if you want, you can get the customer now. You get the customer's invoice number, and these are the dates, and those are the total cost amount. So you guys pretty much get the drift here. If you want, you can get the tabular form like this. You can come there, you can choose not to repeat the item labels. This is all up to you how you want to set that in there. So I'm just choosing for now to show that in an outline form. Okay, so we have the customer ID, we've got the invoice number. Let me see if I can move that to the top. Invoice number, we've got the dates, we've got the cost amount and the total sales amount. But wait, there's a lot more that we can actually do here. So I'm just going to close out of this. This is the pivot table pretty much taking work. So now that we're done with this, it's just a really small pivot table. If I want now, we can start putting in our nice little add-ins. But really quickly, I'm going to show you what happens when we start using those slicers and how easy it is to pretty much extrapolate your information. If you're looking for the total, I'm going to scroll all the way down. Notice how I had to come down to row 414 to look at my grand total for sales and my grand total for the cost. We don't want you doing this. I do not want you guys to have to go back in there every day. And let's say if you're working with even bigger amounts of information, bigger amounts of data, you might need to scroll down to row 10,000. Remember, this is Excel 2016, so you're not even limited to, you're no longer limited to the 665 rows. Now you're going up to close to 1,056,665 rows. So imagine how much work that would take. So what if we want to do this? I'm just going to scroll here and show you guys something really quickly. I can come here and I can just type in total sale. See if I can actually add a nice little, see, I'm just going to go ahead and insert. I'm just inserting this, guys, really quickly because it's all the way up. If ever you want to do it, just right click on it and choose to insert. And that should be good. So I've inserted a bunch of rows. So what if I wanted right now to just get the total sales? I'm just going to call this total sales. There we go. And I'm also going to type in sales rep. Okay. So I've got the sales rep. I've got total sales. What else? I'm just going to call this commission. Okay, I'm just gonna call it commission. Let's say I want to create like a commission calculator for those of you, those sales managers. So let's get that commission, and I'm just gonna type in payout. Good to go. So take a look at this. If I want total sales, I actually want to show everyone what my total sales were without having to scroll all the way down. It's really simple. Again, this is very, very powerful. Just gonna type in the equal sign here like this. Then I'm gonna scroll all the way down. Again, if it's something where it takes a long time to scroll down, you can actually filter it so it's a much shorter list. But I'm just going to click in here like this. Once I click there where it says the total sales amount, notice how there's a formula up top in the formula bar. It's a get pivot table data formula, and it's just saying get the pivot table data where the total sales amount is. So I'm just going to hit enter, and once I do this, notice how the total sales amount is now up top there. I'm saying this because if I were to ever flip this information, I won't have to scroll down to look at the total sales. I'm going to do the same with a sales rep. Just want to show you something. With a sales rep, I'm just going to hit equals. This time I'm going to go here where it says sales rep, and I'm just going to click there where it says all, and it's actually referencing that cell. So I'm going to hit the drop down list like that, and now it says all. For commission percent, can someone help me? What's a good commission percent? What, 10%? Fine. I'm going to type in 10% here. Go ahead and get 10%. And when we get the percentage sign, we get the 10% sign, we can multiply it by the total sales to get the payout. So I'm just going to put in 10% there. And the payout, I'm just going to go ahead and say equals to the 10% multiplied by the total sales. And I'm just going to hit enter. And there we go. So that's pretty much what I'm looking at here. I can reduce the decimals. Of course, that's just going to go home. So I just want to reduce it. So this is general. If I want here, this is where you can definitely go ahead and reduce the decimals. So that's it. Okay, so what we've done so far is we've gone in, we created a pivot table. It's giving us a total sales with all the sales reps and the commission, which is 10% in the payout. But wait, there's more. Let's get really, let's delve into it a bit deeper. There is something here called the slicer. That's what I mentioned. It is one of my favorite tools in Excel and in all of data science. It is the slicer. I'm going to click here. What a slicer does is it filters your information on the fly. If I wanted, for example, to filter my customers right now, to let's say two or three of them, I would have to click here and scroll down and start looking for specific customers to check off. But what if I had 1,000 customers and I was just trying to choose two? If I wanted to filter, let's say a date, I do the same thing under the date section here. However, slicers pretty much have you covered. I'm just going to click on this pivot table. I'm going to go to insert from the main menu, take you all the way to the filters section right here, and I'm going to choose slicer. When I choose the slicer, a nice little floating window pops up. It's an input box asking me, what do you want to slice? So for now, I want to slice the sales rep. So I'm just going to scroll down. And just so you know, these fields are pretty much every single column. I'm going to cancel this. The fields here are generated by every single column in our raw data. So every column heading that you're seeing here can be a slicer. You can slice your data. You can filter it pretty much by everything. Hope that works. So Um, just really quickly, someone wants to know how you can actually show the grand totals. If you want to show grand totals, just click on your pivot table. Just go to design again. That's the master. Once you click on it, go to that ribbon, and you can go here where it says grand totals like that, and you can choose to show your grand totals like this. That's how grand totals work. That's pretty much up to you. But back to my slicers. I'm going to click here again, go to insert. I'm going to go back to slicer. I'm going to work with my sales rep. So let's scroll down and see if I can get the sales rep really quickly. That's it. And I'll click OK. Now that we have it, notice how there's a nice pretty little slicer there. And guys, remember when I told you every single add-in that you place there, every add-in, once you click on it, it has its own ribbon. So from here, you can go ahead and you can edit that slicer. I mean, that's up to you. But watch what happens now, and I want you guys to take a good look at this. What we're doing right now is I'm saving you a lot of time. I'm going to put a bunch of other slicers and show you exactly what happens. Let's say I have a sales rep, Brandy M. Nunley. I wanted to know what her total sales were, and I wanted to know what her payout would be for this specific period. It's easy. I'm just going to click on Brandy. Back in the day, you'd have to go through all of Brandy's invoices. You'd have to go through every invoice with Brandy's name on it and say, okay, this is invoice A, B, C. These are all of these ones. Total them up. Then after totaling them up, you're going to have to look at all the different customers and then say, okay, Brandy, this is how much I'm going to pay you out based on your 10% commission. I don't need to do it. Now I'm just going to click here where it says Brandy M. Nunn like this. And do you guys see what just happened? The total sales For Brandy M. Nunley, notice how her name now shows up and the commission percent, and that's the payout. It's actually gone in, even though this table did indeed pivot, it's gone in there and it's giving us the total sales amount for Brandy M. Nunley. That's what we're looking at. But wait, there's more. What if I was looking at Derek P. Gross? Just click on Derek's name, and now we have Derek. That's his amount. That's essentially what a pivot table will do for you when you're working with those add-ins. But wait, again, there's a lot more because now we're going to get them interacting with one another. So I'm going to work with some I'm going to add another, maybe two more slicers for, let's say, maybe a location and the customers and the items. So it's simple. I'm going to say insert, and you don't need to just click on one at a time. I'm going to say slicer. I'm going to work on customer ID. There we go. Got the customer ID. Let's see. I'm not going to work with the date, invoice number. That's fine. Item ID would also be fine. Let's see, if there's anything else I might want to add there, just to pretty much show you guys how this works. Ship to city. There we go. Ship to city. I'm going to click OK. Now I have three new slicers added to it, and with these three slicers, guys, don't worry about those cities. They're all in Atlanta. Okay, so I'm just going to click here. Now, here's the beauty again of Excel. By clicking a specific sales rep, everything is going to pivot. The pivot table will pivot. Of course, that's a given. But also the cities and the items and the customers will pivot accordingly, which means right now, Adele, I believe one of my clients is there, Adele. Adele, if you wanted to know Mark T. Chamberlain, what the total sales were and what the payout would be, and you wanted to know what cities he actually sold to and which customers Mark T. Chamberlain sold to, again, this would have you going through lots and lots of reports in the office, and if whatever program you're using would have you running different reports on that program. Again, I've done this for decades, and that's essentially what happens. But it could all be solved by throwing it into Excel. So I'm going to click on Mark, and once I do this, just by clicking on Mark, I see the total sales and the payout. But wait, it's already showing me that he sold to Atlanta and Norcross. Everything else it's pretty much grayed out. And look at the customers that he sold to: Armstrong, Hinton, and Roberts. And then, of course, if I scroll down, it's showing me all the different inventory items that he sold. The ones that weren't sold, pretty much grayed out. It's as easy as that. Take that in, because this has just saved you a lot of time just by clicking one button. And if I want to, let's work with Dorothy Beck. It's the same thing. Just click on Dorothy. There you go. Dorothy didn't sell to any cities, but these are the items that she did sell, and it was a customer called Snowden. Leonard Sweet, so on and so forth. That's essentially how it works. So right now we've gone in and we have a logistics report. We also have a shipping report. We have the customers we sold to, and we have a sales commission report. That essentially is how the slicers work. If ever you want to clear the slicers, clear all the information, just go to the top of a slicer and just click clear filter, and it's gone. You're not limited to working with just one slicer. So if I wanted to work, let's say, with Alpharetta, I want to know pretty much everything that's going on in the city of Alpharetta right now. All I do is I just click on Alpharetta and watch this. It's telling me that these three sales reps sold to Alpharetta, and these are the customers located there. And these are the total sales for the city of Alpharetta right there. Same with Atlanta, Centerville, so on and so forth. So I'm going to close this. Again, let's get a bit more pedantic. Dates. Now we're just going to jump into the timelines. Another favorite of mine. Again, oh yeah, someone was wondering, guys, take a look at this. If ever you want to work, if you want to edit your pivot table, some people get really pedantic like that. They want to change the color and the formatting. Click on your pivot table, go back to design. Watch what happens when I mouse over a specific section. Do you guys see what's happening here? You can work with your company colors. You can hit the drop down list some more and do the same. That's really, really cool when you're working with it, so you can actually get them to match. So I'm just going to go here to design. I could choose the green. That's not going to help you guys a lot because you're viewing this online. So I can click on that, and that's what you look at. So if you want to change that, just click on it. It's the same thing with your sliders and your slicers. Just go to options, same thing. Just click on each one. You're going to change it. So now that we're done with this, I want to throw in the timeline really quickly, running a bit out of time. So I'm just going to click on insert. A timeline, what it does is it shows you all the different time frames of your data. And from there, you can click each one instead of, again, filtering through all the information. So it's right next to the slicer, still under filters. And I'm going to choose timeline this time, guys. And I'm going to work just on the date. Remember that date that we threw there? I'm going to choose the date. I'm going to click OK. And guys, we have something called a timeline showing up now. There we go. So with that timeline, what I can do is I can easily filter my information based on time. I'm going to show you what happens with this. Now, timelines, I've currently set it to month. So let's say I want to look at sales just for January. Really quickly, I'm going to work with Dorothy L. Beck. And with Dorothy, I want to know what Dorothy's sales were for the month of January, all cities that she shipped to, and the items and the customers that made the purchase. Let's see if I can make that smaller. Good to go. It's much better. Hope you guys can still see it. Good. So really quickly, I'm just going to choose right here. Let's just go ahead and choose the month of January. Do you guys see what just happened? Right now, I'm looking at data just for January of 2017. Then I want to look at Dorothy L. Beck. And there it is. As easy as that. No sales whatsoever for the month of January. Let's see if anyone did have sales. Yes. So for the month of January, Brandy M. Nunley did have sales at the tune of 22,037 cents, and she sold just to customer Archer in Alpharetta. You're not limited to just going through one month. You can actually drag it January, February, March like this and release. Another good question coming in. What if you want to work with multiple sales reps or multiple slicer items? You can do that. Hold down Control on your keyboard and you can click. So I'm going to click on Dorothy. I'm going to click on Mark. I'm just holding down Control, guys, in case you're wondering. I'm going to choose on Susan T. Pritchard and release. Now, these are the four people I'm working with, so you guys get a bigger picture. I'm going to clear that. Something else. Let me clear the slice, the timeline. You're not limited to just months, okay? So I'm going to hit the drop down list. If you must change it, you don't want to work just on months. I'm just going to click here like this. Instead of working on months, I can work on years. I can work on quarters or days. So I'm just going to choose days. Now it shows me every single day within that time frame. So what if I wanted to know sales for, let's say, the first 10 days of February? Really easy. I'm just going to choose February 1st. Then I'm going to drag this all the way here through 10. And it actually tells you what the date is, so don't worry about it. February 10th, 1st to 10th, 2017. And there are the totals. So if anyone comes in, if a customer comes in saying, hey, I made some purchases on a certain day, you can definitely go ahead and do that. In fact, I'm going to do it right now. So if I want, let's say I can pretty much throw in a nice little slicer here. A lot of you have probably seen this. For those of you that work with receipts and expense statements, for example, I can come here and I'm going to go to insert. Let's put in a nice little slicer again. This time I'm going to throw a slicer for the date. And once I put that slicer for the date, I'm just going to click OK. Now I have a bunch of dates showing up here. This is the dashboard taking place. So if this customer comes in, let's say a customer called Chapel comes in and says, hey, I want to know every single day over the past few months. I want to know every day that I made purchases from you guys. I bought something from you. It's easy. Just click on Cummings right here. And again, it tells you that Cummings had 12th March, 13th March. See, it's actually showing all that information in there for you to take a look at. And if whatever invoice they're looking at, you can definitely get the invoices because pivot tables allow you to drill down on information. There was a complaint back in the day. I mean, this lots of years ago. People saying, well, I see the data, but how do I know if it's right? What if I want to expand on this information? That's easy. We're working with Cummings right now. In Cummings, we do see the 100 and the 10,046. Just place your mouse on it where it says total sales amount or anywhere here and double click. And once you do that, voila. It actually drills down on that information. It's a brand new sheet that's created. And from there, you can scroll and you can look at all the information. So you can actually drill down on it. So once you're done drilling down, because it's a field that was created based on a drill down, you can right click on it and you can delete and just say yes, delete it. Back to your pivot table. So that's what we're looking at now, but there's a lot more. So I'm just going to get rid of the date for you. Get rid of one. See, I'm just going to leave these ones up top here because from this point now, you can start putting in your custom charts, your charts and your graphs, and they're all dynamic as I mentioned. So again, it's a dashboard that we're building here. Let's see if I can just drag this a bit more. There we go. So I want to go in and I want to make it more visual. A lot of people like working with visuals to know how they're doing at a specific time. Simply clicking on that specific pivot table, you can go to analyze like this and choose a pivot chart. Recommended pivot tables, we're not going to do that. Yes, I'm going to answer this question. Guys, someone's wondering if you can create multiple pivot tables on the same data, and the answer is yes. And that's something that a lot of people do. I mean, people that work with stock with bonds, they do that to compare between two different departments or two different companies at the same time over the same time frame. So I'm just going to click on this. Let's go to insert and let's go ahead and get a nice little chart. They're recommended charts. If I click on it, the same thing that you saw with those recommended charts. Notice how they all pop up. I can get a line or a column or a bar chart or a pie chart. I'm going to cancel that, or you can create your own. Just go to insert and you can choose whichever charts you want. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to work with a 3D pie. Let's work with a three-dimensional pie. And there it is. What we have here is a three-dimensional pie. Let's see if I can move that a bit to the right. There we go. It's showing me the total cost amount. That's one. I'm not, you can always go ahead and you can filter it if it's not the total cost amount that you want to work with. You can go in there and say, hey, that's not what I want to work with. I want to work with something different. And if you decide to change the format, simply click anywhere on it. You're just going to go here for your style and your color, and you can change it like this. It pretty much edits accordingly. So I'm just going to leave when I'll just take it to colorful, and that's pretty much it. Now watch what happens when I start pivoting the information. If I want to work with people in Chambly, just clicking on Chambly, and there you go. That's it. So Chambly pretty much, it's really small. It's not giving me anything for the total cost. Notice how the total cost amount for Chambly is indeed zero. What about Atlanta? I'm going to choose Atlanta, and notice how everything is pivoted. I'm talking the sales reps, I'm talking the items, customer IDs, and now it's just pretty much showing me all the information I'm looking at, and it's giving me um, a legend for that specific chart in that graph. Again, guys, be as dangerous as possible and destructive. I'm just going to choose Lilburn. There we go. Chambly. Again, this is not stuff that you're limited to. You can change this to reflect whichever way you want. I mean, this is completely up to you. If there are any values that you want to change here, just go in there and you can actually flip them around. So I'm just doing this right now just to show you exactly how that works. If I want, I can throw in a nice little chart again. Let's see if I can clear this out. I'm just going to click here. I'm going to go to Insert again. This time, let's see if I can get a nice little columnar chart. There we go. I've got a columnar chart here. Doesn't look like much, but once you start pivoting the information, it's also going to take precedence. So I'm just going to come here. Let's work with the customer Aldred like that. There we go. So that's Aldred that we're looking at. Notice how all of these different charts, they're flipping accordingly. That's it. Any questions so far? There are a lot of them coming in. I'll see if I can actually field all of them when as soon as we're working along. But that's what a pivot table does for you guys. I mean, you can just go ahead and you can, it, for me, it is the most efficient accounting tool when you're working in Excel. And this was just the beginning. And there's a lot of stuff that I haven't put in there. Again, this is just the very first episode in this series. If you want, you can put in custom calculations that don't even exist within your software, the software that you have working in the office. You can go ahead and you can put in a calculation that gives you 10% of the total cost amount divided by, let's say, 5% of the total sales amount. I mean, if you're actually doing a lot more analysis with your sales data. Again, you're not limited to just sales information. I'm talking inventory. I'm talking financials where you're looking at gross profit. You're looking at your net income. That's pretty much up to you. But just wanted to show you what you can do with a pivot table and how efficient and how powerful they are when you're analyzing your information. And they also help. They also help towards creating more powerful reports. So that's pretty much it. Now, if you guys do indeed want this the finished product. If you want the finished product, what I've done, just go and shoot me an email, the one I just sent you guys, and I can definitely send you this and you can play around with it some more. So this was that sales analysis that we were working with right here. This was just I wanted to show you pretty much what it looks like, but this is the one that we've created. And something else also, for those of you again that work in management and work in accounting, I'm just going to click here. I'm just going to go to Insert. In fact, now let's go to Analyze. Analyze. I'm going to take you back to the field list. I'm going to throw in the transaction type to show you exactly what happens. So I've got the transaction type in there. And guys, what happens now with the transaction type is this. I have a bunch of different transaction types from credit memos, invoices, proposals, pretty much. If I want to view just receipts, I'm moving now from accounts receivable from pretty much the sales. I just want to look at receipts that came in over a specific period. I'm going to choose receipt and I'll click OK. And now I'm looking at just data for receipts. So I have quickly flipped from my invoices to just my receipts, and I know that my total receipts right here, that's it, 116,000. But what if I wanted to look at something else? Let's say I want to look at just the credit memos. I'm just clicking OK, and now I'm looking at credit memos. So again, it's saving you so much time from flipping from your sales order journal or your, let's say, receipts journal, flipping through all those papers. Just click on each one, and there you have it. That's the information that we're looking at. So that essentially, in a nutshell, is how a pivot table works, guys. So I'm going to leave it at that. Took up a lot of time. I'm sorry. I think we went 15 minutes over, but that's pretty much it. Want to thank you again for taking time off your busy schedule to attend today's webcast. I'm just finishing it off really quickly so you guys can be on your way. Let's just finishing that up. There we go. So what we looked at essentially, we looked at the pivot tables, we looked at the different slicers, we looked at charts and the graphs, and of course those named ranges, and we went in there and we showed how all of these come together when you're working with your information. So please go out and download that file and you can work as much as possible. And if you have any questions essentially that pop up, when you're doing the work. If anything that you don't understand, please shoot me the email one more time. I'm just going to send that back so you guys can see it. Here it is. It's david.acco-brian at sage.com. I'm the intelligence solutions specialist, the global intelligence solutions specialist slash data scientist. So just shoot me those questions. Yes, Carly and Rennie, yes, I will be waiting for your email, guys. Please download it. Download the file when the questions come and let me know. And really quickly, please connect with us again at sageintelligence.com. We do have a learning portal with more educational topics like this. It's just learning.sageintelligence.com, and you can check out the Sage Intelligence Academy if you want to get certified on pretty much everything I've done here, including our Sage Intelligence products and Sage 50, Sage 100, all of our core software products. Just check it out. And if you have questions with that, just let me know. And again, once more, thanks for taking time off your busy schedule to attend today's webcast, and have a great weekend. You can go back and watch the World Cup now. You guys have a great one, and thanks for choosing Sage.